The regular meeting of the Annapolis City Council on Monday, January 9th, 2023 will be called to order at 7 p.m. At this time, would you join us for the invocation given by Alderman Schandlmeyer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May we come together tonight to do the work of the people and to lift up the most vulnerable amongst us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley.
Here.
Alderwoman Tierney.
Present.
Alderwoman O'Neill. Present. Alderwoman Kendall Charles.
Here.
Alderwoman Finlayson.
Present.
Alderman Schandlmeyer.
Present.
Alderman Gay.
Here.
Alderman Savage.
Present.
Alderman Arnett.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the first item on the agenda.
The first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
This time I entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
The second. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley.
Aye.
Alderman Arnett.
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney.
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill. Aye. Alderwoman Kendall Charles.
Aye.
Alderwoman Finlayson.
Aye.
Alderman Schandlmeyer.
Aye.
Alderman Gay.
Aye.
Alderman Savage.
Aye.
Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item.
The next item on the agenda is a ceremonial item, City Council Citation ID 123, recognition of the 40th anniversary of the Eastport Yacht Club Lights Parade.
All right, and what a parade it was. We're so excited to have you guys here. Who's going to come forward for the presentation? Please come on up. Let's hear it for these guys. One of the things that makes this city so unique and special, I'm going to come up and read that to you. Do you want to come up, Ellie? It's in you.
Oh, okay.
You support,
Yeah.
Ross.
Ross, it's Ross.
Okay.
Jump over here. Or I should.
Why don't you be here over there or read the citation?
Do you want to read it, Ross? No. Right. Is that on the close to control? On behalf of the residents of the City of Annapolis, we're pleased to confer upon you the City Council citation in recognition of the 40th anniversary of the Eastport Yacht Club Lights Parade. Congratulations. Back in the 1980s, Spar Creek liveaboard Jim Langer decorated his boat and began what is now Annapolis's most widely attended winter event. And we just did get rated as one of the best holiday cities in America in 2 different publications, and I know it's because of the amazing things you do. 5 years later, the parade's boats decked out in holiday lights had grown to 40 and become the official activity of the EYC Cruise Committee. Despite inclement weather, pandemics, and departure of ships to other ports, the Lights Parade carries on. The boats come in all sizes, from kayaks to schooners, and participants vary in age, from students to retirees. Each year, the crowd cheers for returning favourites and oohs and ahs over new entries. And as much as a sock burning is a spring tradition in this maritime city, the Lights Parade is the winter must-see. We thank you for your work in organising this event, and congratulations to you for continued success. Thank you for making our city so special. Thank you. And it's the 40th anniversary. We'd love you to say a couple of words if you could.
Well, you pretty much described it, Mayor.
We'll get you on the microphone. So it's
You pretty much described it as it's been for the past 40 years. Trudy, my wife, took over a few years ago, tried to create a little more, Brian will tell you, participation with the city, which we did with the market downtown for 4 days. I believe was a success for the city. And as you mentioned, we also had a few hiccups. My wife, Trudy, like I said, we took over a few years ago, and she's been our co-chair for 4 years. First year canceled for the pandemic, second year canceled for bad weather, and now finally got to have a really, really nice parade this year, had the weather and really nice decorations. And we want to appreciate the participation from the city with the traffic control and everything that they do for us, and Felicia Nolan and the harbor master for getting all of our details taken care of for the lights parade. Trudy.
thank you.
It certainly is an honor tonight that we're recognized. It's been a long time coming, 40 years, but we're really happy about it. And it's a pleasure to work with you, to work with the city, to work with Visit Annapolis. Brian Callahan, who's in the back, really close and wonderful. So thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so
Do you know how to do the notes? I used to do them all the time, and I can't get into them. Oh, wait a minute, I'm not in the thing yet.
Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yeah, where am I here?
The next item on the agenda is a ceremonial item, City Council Citation ID 223, Department of Public Works employees.
We wanted to recognize the hard work of the Public Works employees. Many times when you hear a siren or there's a water main break outdoors, we're all tucked in bed in our nice warm houses. Nobody knows what goes on when these guys are down 10 foot, 20 foot down a hole trying to fix a water main break in freezing cold weather and in freezing cold water. And these are the unsung heroes of the city right here. We just wanted to get them into City Hall. That's awesome. So on behalf of the residents of the City of Annapolis, we are pleased to confer upon you the City Council citation in recognition of your work as valued team members of the Department of Public Works. Tonight, we want to recognize your dedication and highlight a specific instance of that commitment. On Christmas Eve 2022, when the bitter cold temperatures had descended in our region, temperatures in the teens with wind chills in single digits, you worked through the night and into the morning to repair 2 broken water mains. Due to your hard work and devotion to our residents, we were able to help those in the affected areas have a Merry Christmas. We know that time was away from your families and it was an important occasion, and it's part of the job that you do. In this instance, the work can be classified as above and beyond. We thank you. We thank your families especially for sharing you and your talents on Christmas Eve and on Christmas morning. We thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. Thank you. I'm just going to give these out. If you can stay up so we get a photo of Joseph Panner. I'm just going to do us some reach out. Marlon. Van. Thank you. Dominico. There's an extra one. Can someone take it back? Omar. Thank you. Sean. Larry Dobson. Eric. Rome. Asbury. Thank you, Asbury. Thanks for my house too. This man's got a lot of talent right here, I can tell you. If you need him off work time, you're fired. So, can we get up here for a quick picture? Thank you. And then if one of you wants to say a couple of words, we love that. I know you guys, I know you're a shy group.
That's great. That's a great idea.
Where did those pictures go?
Thank you. There you go.
I do want to thank these guys. I mean, they were out all day Christmas Eve, and everybody knows the temperatures out there into the night. They spent Christmas morning working on a water main break. And when the chips are down, these guys really come in strong. So thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. And I was home, by the way.
Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
The next item on the agenda is petitions, reports, and communications, beginning with the update from the mayor.
Right, so Happy New Year, everyone. I look forward to 2023 being a great year for the city of Annapolis. I'd like to start by thanking all city staff who worked over Christmas and New Year's period to deal with emergencies, keep services running, support events like the Military Bowl and New Year's Eve. Like the DPW crew, we just recognised tonight these workers were out in the winter cold and away from their families during the holidays to keep things running. They stayed out there, and we really, truly appreciate that. The City Council and everyone in our community, thank you for your service. Early this evening, I was proud to help launch a new boxing program for middle and high school youth. The program is called Cut Difference Boxing, and it will be run out of the Pip Moyer Recreation Centre. It will provide a great opportunity for local teens to develop fitness, learn new skills, and make new friends. And I'd like to thank everyone from the Annapolis Police Department, the Police Foundation, and the US Naval Academy who helped get this program off the ground. It is going to be an amazing game changer for this city. If you haven't seen a few articles that have been out there, you know, we do a lot of things for kids in the city. We try to do as much as we can, but sometimes when kids get a little bit older, we lose them, and we need something that will captivate them. We feel really strongly about this new program. It'll be attractive to our teens. We might even produce a few champions out of Annapolis. So it was a great event that I just left before I came here tonight. This week we welcome all newly elected and re-elected representatives from across Maryland here to our beautiful capital city for the 445th session of the Maryland General Assembly. On Wednesday, the city, in partnership with the Maryland Municipal League, will host a legislative reception at the Governor Calvert House to welcome legislators, their staff, lobbyists, and advocates to Annapolis. They will be here for the next 90 days, which always brings business and other benefits to our community. Next week, on Wednesday, January 18th, Governor-elect Wes Moore and Lieutenant Governor-elect Aruna Miller will be sworn in at the State House. This is a major event and it requires tight security, so there will be disruptions to parking and traffic downtown throughout the day. Please give yourself extra time to get around. If you plan on attending, park at Park Place and take the free downtown shuttle to State Circle. From there, you can walk less than 1 block to the inaugural festivities at Lawyers Mall. We look forward to working with Governor Moore, and again, congratulations to him and Lieutenant Governor Miller on their wins last November. And a big thank you also to Governor Larry Hogan for all his time in office too. We truly appreciate what he's done for Annapolis too. A reminder on next week's City Council office, the City Council offices will be closed on Monday, January 16th to commemorate the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It is a day we can reflect on his courage and sacrifice, and a good time to consider services to the community by volunteering by that day or using the day to start a new volunteer routine. There are a number of worthwhile organisations that could use a helping hand. Mentor a child, feed the hungry, work in a community garden. There are limitless options to spread your love to the community. There are numerous events planned to honour Dr. King's legacy, including a dinner this Friday and a breakfast on the 16th. More information on those can be found online. And lastly, I would like to thank the coordinators of the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. dinner, who will be honouring a number of people in our community for their service, including our very own Alderman Gay, who is receiving the We Share the Dream Award. The committee is generously giving me an award as well, the Morris Blum Humanitarian Award for our work saving Elktonia Cars Beach. I want to thank the Dr. King dinner organisers and congratulations to all 13 honorees. Now let's get on with the meeting. Mr. City Attorney.
The next item on the agenda is report by committees.
Alderman O'Neill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Transportation Committee will be meeting this Wednesday, January 11th, 4 p.m. On the agenda will be a presentation report from the Bird folks for scooters and bicycles to date, any of the data that they've been collecting. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next Environmental Matters meeting is this Thursday, the 9th. I'm sorry, that's today. Where's the date? This Thursday, the 12th. And we'll be hearing from Public Works, who will be giving a report on Spa Road and some of the pollution that's on that property, just to get us all updated on what's going on out there. We'll also be discussing O5222, which is turtle-friendly curbs, and also I think it's O5622, which is the sediment control legislation that's up for public hearing. And I think that's about it. So anybody from the public's welcome to join us Thursday at 3 p.m.
Alderman Tierney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Finance Committee met December 21st, and we reviewed 3 supplemental appropriations, which you'll find on the agenda tonight, SA 22, 23, and 24. The police department has been very busy securing grants from the Governor's Office of Crime Control and Prevention. We reviewed fund transfer number 1, which was an allocation of the held money on the union negotiations and then distributed to the departments, and that's on the agenda tonight. We also had a discussion about our fee waivers and our self-insurance fund, and continued the discussion, had the last presentations on the capital improvement projects. The next meeting is scheduled for next Wednesday, January 18th, but we will have to postpone that due to the inauguration of Governor Governor-elect Moore. Thank you.
Alderman Finlayson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Rules and City Government Committee met on Friday, January 6th. We reviewed O3322, the Annapolis City Public Ethics legislation. We gave it a favorable recommendation. We also discussed O2522, which is the prevailing wage legislation. We gave all 8 amendments favorable recommendations, but decided to postpone action to hear from several department heads to answer additional questions that we had. So we'll pick that legislation up at our February meeting. We also were to hear about the rental assistance program policies and procedures. but because of time, we postpone action on that also. Our next meeting will be on February 3rd. We have changed the time from 3 to 1 p.m. in the afternoon. Here in council chambers, all are invited. Thank you.
Alderman Pendell Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Public Safety Standing Committee met on December the 5th. At that time, our next meeting is scheduled for January the 17th from 4 to 5 p.m. here in council chambers. As you all know, we started the Annapolis United program back in March. Last council meeting, I read the officers of the month for March, April, and May. I'm going to quickly go through the ones for June and July. June, Officer First Class Stephanie Venicotta. Officer Venicotta was involved in 2 separate events in June in which her dedication to duty is worthy of recognizing her as Officer of the Month. On June 11th, officers responded to a report of shots fired in Harbor House community. Evidence was located in front of 1012 President Street. Detectives were able to obtain description of the suspects and of the vehicle in which they fled. Officer Venicotta immediately began searching for the vehicle and suspects. Officer Venicotta located the vehicle, suspects in the Robin Hood community. Suspects were arrested and a handgun was recovered from the vehicle. On June 22nd at 12:30 a.m., Officer Venicotta observed a vehicle being operated with only one working headlamp and initiated a traffic stop to issue a repair order. Vehicle's driver and other occupants fled from the vehicle on foot. Officer Venicotta and the other officers were able to detain the driver, and he was found to be in possession of a scale and 2 grams of crack cocaine. The vehicle was found to have been stolen from the Glen Burnie area. The driver initially gave officers a false name, and through their investigation, they uncovered his true identity and discovered he had an outstanding no-bond warrant for violation of probation. It is through consistent, self-initiated, and proactive police work that Officer Venicotta continues to shine in the performance of her duties. Officer Venicotta carries a pleasant, can-do attitude and always does what is asked of her without complaint. Congratulations to her. July 2022, Officer First Class T.J. Wolford. Officer Wolford was involved in the arrest of a man armed with a handgun. His dedication to duty is worthy of recognizing him for July Officer of the Month. On July 17, shortly after midnight, officers responded to apartments in the 1200 block Graff Court. Caller reported seeing a man armed with a handgun in a shared laundry room. When Officer Wolford arrived, he saw 2 men inside the laundry room. He and another officer entered the room, and one of the men turned to face Officer Wolford. Officer Wolford saw the grip of a handgun above the waistband of the man and gave him orders not to reach for it. The man was arrested, found to be 17 years old, was charged as an adult with several violations related to carrying the handgun. Officer Wolford, as our July Officer of the Month, in recognition of removing another gun from the streets of Annapolis and preventing a further crime that may have occurred in the community. Keep up the great work. Thank you all.
Thank you. Alderman Gay.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Did you know that in the Target Shopping Center, a studio apartment is $1,986 and a 1-bedroom apartment starts at $2,200? This, or December the 17th, next Tuesday, we'll be discussing 05022, which has to do with the rent control board for the city of Annapolis, is still in committee. We'll also be discussing 04022, which has to do with workforce housing in the city of Annapolis. And I think it's critically important due to the crisis that we're in and our residents are suffering. And so I'm excited to have those discussions. We will have public testimony at the discretion of the chair. I advise those who want to give public testimony to get there early. We start at 6 o'clock.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you very much. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
The next item on the agenda is comments by the general public.
So during comments by the general public, you may not speak on an item scheduled for public hearing. So we'll just check the sign-ins. Sometimes people make mistakes on that. Items that are scheduled for public hearing, and they'll have their moment, are 040-22 workforce housing. So that will be coming up after. 05522 sediment control inspections process. And 05722 residential district code section corrections. So we have first person signed up to speak, and if you're speaking on anything else but those 3 things, please come forward. Hugh Hayes. Hugh, are you out there? Do I need to call you back for workforce housing? Okay. Next up, Tara Stout. Please come forward, Tara. State your full name and address.
I'm back again, Tara Stout, 1118 Old Drive. Tara Stout, 1118 August Drive, Annapolis, Ward 6. I just wanted to talk again about the Willows, and I'd like to start by saying I realize that sometimes there is a disconnect between what one person says and another person hears, and that the best way to bridge that gap is dialogue and action. I've been at every city council meeting since November 14th to emphasize the urgency of getting the Willows to Planning Commission so that the low-income housing tax credits do not expire. Alderman Gay requested proof of the expiration, and it was provided. That prompted a verbal commitment to public notice the week of 12/12 and a 1/5 Planning Commission meeting. But those dates went by the wayside with no commitment or no new target date offered. I understand that adequate public facilities police is a bigger issue than just the Willows, and that some perceive my comments at these meetings as negative and critical of city staff. My comments are not directed at any individual and are not personal. They are about what appears to be selective or inconsistent application of the city code. The code defines adequate public facilities as the ability to meet adequate public facilities within 6 years. This would include the officer-citizen ratio. But when asked who and how it is decided whether it is achievable within the 6 years, no one answers those questions. Perhaps the council could commit to comply with the code over the next 6 years so that planning and zoning, the police, and the Office of Law would be more comfortable moving projects forward. The suggestion that this is all because of the Eastport Lofts decision feels more like an excuse than a reason. That decision was issued in May 2022, and it did not alter the city code. The judge would not have the authority to eliminate Section 22.28 of the city code, which specifically provides applicants the right to mitigate if there's a deficiency in any adequate public facilities. Council has been informed that the low-income housing tax credit for this project require residents to be living in the buildings by December of 2024, which means we need to get to Planning Commission, submit for and secure permits and construct the buildings, get UNOs, and get residents living in there. We submitted a revised and very detailed mitigation agreement outlining the financial contribution that the Willows is making on 12/22, but we have not had any substantive feedback on the document. The response has been that there are more meetings scheduled with council members, police, Office of Law, and the Council for Eastport Lofts. The Willows should not be impacted by Eastport Lofts process, and if the idea is that all 5 projects that Alderman Arnett indicates are impacted by this, are involved, why is only one applicant allowed to participate in these discussions? Tonight, it's likely at some point you will all vocalize support for workforce and affordable housing, but talk means nothing without action, and the action or lack thereof to advance a 100% affordable housing project to public hearing suggests it's just talk, or perhaps that the support for workforce housing is really for those owning the 60 to 120% of the area median income, and the Willows development will serve those earning 50% or less. The Willows was pursued based on the support of the mayor and with the help of the 30A delegation. How can we expect the 30A delegation to continue to bring us money if the city cooperates with dollars for city docks but not for affordable housing? What does that say about the city's real commitment to affordable housing? The Willows complies with the zoning code as written. It does not need O4022, and its population is not large enough to impact the officer-citizen ratio. We need some answers from the city on what the plan is for this project, and we hopefully will get them soon. I actually have more to say, but the time limit, so I'll end my remarks, and hopefully the next time I'm here, we're all saying we have a date for this project to move forward.
Thank you.
I understand Providence Point's decision will be issued Wednesday, and Providence Point needs the Willows and the Legion's cooperation. So I think it's best for everybody if we resolve this.
Mr. Mayor, if I could.
This is just.
I'm not responding to her. I'm asking you a question. If your office would take the initiative and the lead to follow up on this. We did, I remember, I think it was in September, attending a work session of the Planning Commission, and there was mention that it would be added to the agenda in December. We got to December, there was an issue with December. They said it would be added in January, where in January it was missed. I'm not sure what the problem is, and I respect our planning staff, but there seems to be an issue that they are not relaying to the council members. And so hopefully your office would be able to get that answer for us.
Okay, thank you. Next up, Curtis Jones.
Good evening. My name is Curtis Jones. I live at 1400 Brighton View Road, Annapolis, Maryland, 21409. And for those of you that don't know, that is outside the city limits. But I'm here today, this evening, to speak again about public housing, the lack thereof, and the state, as Tara just stated, that there's a lot going on. And we have a lot of people that come to the American Legion, and they do complain. You may not hear these complaints, but I hear these complaints. So I'm coming to speak for those that won't come forward. That lack of public housing is hurting the city and its workers. You have people that live outside the city limits that have to drive into the city to come to work. Glen Burnie areas. A lot of times these folks are late for work. And they're being told by their boss, look, you can't be late so many more times, I'm gonna have to let you go. But some of the reasons they're late, other than traffic, is because of the distance they have to travel. And other things come up like gas. You know, they can't afford to keep paying the gas to come back and forth. And so what I'm looking at and what I'm saying is that, hey, the city needs to get off the dime. You know, I'm just stating it like it is, as far as I see it, as an outsider looking in. And I moved to Annapolis in 1996. The Marine Corps got me stationed here. And I made the county my home. And so I will continue to support the people of the area and the people of this nation by speaking up for those that can't speak for themselves, as I did for 21 years in the Marine Corps. And that's all I have for you this evening. And thank you.
Thank you, Gunny. We're going to get it done, I promise. Nobody else signed up to speak on anything outside of the three that I announced. Please, if anyone needs to speak, please come forward. Thank you.
Good evening. Lisa Wilson, 601 Oaklawn Avenue, Annapolis, Maryland. I'm in Ward 3. I'm here to represent the Greater Parole Community Association. I want to commend Alderman Gay and Alderman Chandemeyer for pushing affordable housing as much as you possibly can. But I want you guys to know that GPCA is not against this workforce housing, but we are against maybe how it's written right now.
This is there's still a public hearing on the workforce housing coming up. Yeah, so you have to come.
Yes, that's what I'm speaking of. No.
It's not up yet, so we'll call you when we're on that public hearing.
I thought that's what you said. Thank you.
No worries. Anyone on anything outside of public housing, the other two, affordable housing, please come forward.
Patrick Newman, on behalf of the Newman Dance Center, 131 Gibraltar Avenue. Here to talk about the conditions of Gibraltar Avenue. I'm sure I'm not the first to be addressing this with this body. We've been operating our business on that street for 3 years. There's 47 other businesses that operate on that road. The conditions of the road are absolutely horrendous. There are gaps in the pavement, massive potholes. Many of our clients are breaking their vehicles just trying to pass through there. When I reached out to Public Works, they're claiming that it is a privately owned road and the city only owns the first 100 feet of it. I'm here to ask this body, number one, who is it that owns it? Because no one can seem to tell me that. And number two, how can we really call this a private road when it's publicly accessed? There's 2 schools that use it to access it. I'm sure everyone in this room has accessed that road and is using that road. How can this governing body not take ownership of that and repair the road that we're all using?
We are putting a quick claim deed in on the property as you speak. So, but it does not belong to the city currently. So we agree with you. It's in terrible condition and we have to take ownership so we can fix it. Yeah.
So what does that look like in terms of timeline?
I'd have to speak to the city attorney that's organising that, but I spoke to him about it today. He's not here, Mike Lyles. We can have somebody in the city get back to you on the timeline.
I appreciate it.
But we agree with you 100%. Alderman Pindell Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yes, we communicated earlier, exactly. And I passed it along to the mayor as well as our city manager. So yes, I know it's been a problem for years, and I gave you kind of a little historical context about it, which is, I think, the source of the problem. But anyway, we're going to work on it immediately, and we're going to try to get it done as quickly as we can.
Thank you very much.
But thank you so much for coming before this body.
Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else like to come forward and speak? Please come forward.
Hey, everybody, I'm Duncan Hood, 922 Berwick Drive, Annapolis 21403. The other day I was driving down Forest Hills Avenue and I nearly hit somebody because they were dressed in black, walking beneath a purple streetlight. I would like to ask, and I understand it's a manufacturing problem and BG&E is on it, but BG&E can only be on this if we as citizens tell them which light poles are a problem. So I would ask if it's possible to get a word out for citizens to just walk out, take a picture of that number, and get it up there, because it's a real danger. This is not Ravens support. This is a real problem. Thank you.
Could you please reach out to Hillary? Have you reached out to Hillary, the ombudsman for the city?
I have not.
Okay, yeah, just call Hillary and we'll get on it. It's an LED product that shines purple for some reason. I didn't understand it either. So. Thank you. Anybody else like to come forward and speak? Thank you. Seeing no motion in the chamber. Oh, sorry. How you doing? Please come forward to state your full name and address.
How you doing, folks? My name's Terrence Tracy, and I live here in Annapolis, specifically in Ward 6. How you doing, Gavin?
Hey there, good to see you.
Doing good, buddy. I'm
Looking
here to ask a few questions. Normally, I would just fill out a Public Information Act for these questions, but we all know how you guys don't follow the law regarding those, so this is my next best way of asking this. You told the local paper to write a slander piece about me, claiming that I was the reason for the metal detector downstairs. But then in that same article, at a later point, it states that a security audit in 2018 actually revealed that one was needed. So, which was it? Was it me, or was it the security audit that prompted this metal detector downstairs? And if so, why did you wait 4 years before enacting upon that security information? My final question is, why did you spend city money to actually purchase that metal detector downstairs back in 2018 or 2019 just to let it sit at the police department in a closet? How much does one of those metal detectors cost? And why have you misled your citizens on when and why the funds were spent to acquire it?
So we're just here to listen to you, so I'll take that into
I
consideration.
mean, you answered some other people.
This is a listening session, we don't answer.
You answered a few other people.
No?
I've heard you answer some questions tonight, but okay.
Thank you.
So you're not going to answer it?
No.
Not going to answer this question because I put in Public Information Act requests for
Okay.
that because it's public information, but you guys ignore those. I reached out to the state ombudsman. You guys have declined to enter into mediation with the state ombudsman. I reached out to the attorney general. You guys have still illegally neglected to give me that public information. You stated here in another city council meeting that you would love to have coffee anytime, that your door was open. I tried to set that meeting up multiple times with Hillary Raftovich. I came and even knocked on your door for over an hour, was accosted by your city manager, threatened, and then falsely charged with crimes that I didn't commit. So at what point will you answer these questions? At what point will you give me the public information that I am legally requesting, Mayor Gavin Buckley?
So I think that this is a pattern you have all over the region, so we are letting professionals deal with you. Thank you.
I'm sorry?
We are letting professionals deal with you. We're letting the
You are the
system.
professionals. You're the elected.
Okay.
You're the elected official, sir.
And thank you. You've had your
You have
3
city
minutes now.
attorneys. No, I haven't. The bell hasn't gone off yet, sir. It's still my time. You have city attorneys to deal with these Public Information Act requests, the same that you have a city clerk. So why, when I put it in, do you not answer it? You said you're allowing the professionals to handle it, but yet when I submit it legally and in the proper channels, you ignore it. So what professionals are handling it if the people elected and appointed to handle it aren't doing it, sir? At what point is someone going to handle it and do it?
You put in hundreds of these requests.
I put in 7 of them because
In
you
the
ignored
region,
every single
in
one
the
of them.
region, thank you.
Is there a limit to how many Public Information Act requests I'm allowed to put in? I'm sorry?
I'm not answering your questions.
Well, you did. You just tried to sit there and say that I put in 100 of them.
I said
Is there a
hundreds
limit?
around the region.
Is there a limit to how many I'm allowed to put in,
I
sir?
assume not, but you know, you take a lot of city time. with your efforts. Thank you.
You haven't answered one of them yet.
Okay,
so
can you please step off the podium now?
I'll
It's
step
3
off.
minutes.
My time is up yet, sir. Did
Okay.
I hear the bell go off yet?
No, the bell has gone.
Okay, I didn't hear it go off.
Timed
Usually
you on
there's like a
3
ding
minutes
ding or
already.
something.
Thank you. Thank
Okay,
you.
So we're not gonna.
We have to get on with the city
There's
council
the bell,
meeting.
sir. There you go. Don't
It was
try and
off
rush
before
me.
that.
There's a time limit, and everyone has the same amount of time. Everyone is given the same rights and equal treatment.
That's
up here on the
additional
podium,
time.
sir.
Thank you.
You don't get to discriminate against me because you don't like the fact that I use proper and legal channels to acquire public information.
Thank
That
you.
was the bell telling me that I have X amount of time left. Do not rush me when I come down here.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
You're welcome.
See ya.
I'm gonna go sit right here in the chair.
Yep, great. Anybody else like to come forward and speak? Thank you. I declare the public hearing closed. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
The next item on the agenda is appointments, beginning with AP 7122, the appointment of Jenny Janis to the Environmental Commission.
Can I get a motion to approve AP 71-22?
So moved.
Can I get a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
The next item on the agenda is approval of the consent calendar items on the approval of the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar include journals of proceedings.
Thank you. Any objections to the consent calendar? I entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Somebody? Second. Thank you. Roll call.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley?
Aye.
Alderman Arnett?
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney?
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill?
Aye.
Alderwoman Pendle Charles?
Aye.
Alderwoman Finlayson?
Aye.
Alderman Shadow Meyer?
Aye.
Alderman Gay?
Aye.
Alderman Savage?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
The next item on the agenda is business and miscellaneous items, beginning with supplemental appropriations, SA 22-23, Police Grant Fund, Governor's Office of Crime Control and Prevention, State Grant Revenue.
Thank you. Could I get a motion to approve SA 22-23?
So moved. Second.
Second. Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
The next item on the agenda is SA 23-23, Grant, Police, Governor's Office of Crime Control and Prevention, State Grant Revenue.
Could I get a motion for SA 23-23?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
The next item on the agenda is SA 24-23, Grant, Police, Governor's Office of Crime Control and Prevention.
Thank you. Could I get a motion for SA 24-23?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
Next item on the agenda is fund transfer, FT 1-23, Fund, General Departments, Various.
Can I get a motion for FT 1-23?
So moved.
Second.
Can I get a second? Alderman Gay.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Question for either the city manager or finance director. Is this, it says it was already previously allocated, I'm assuming, in the last budget. Is this going back because they don't need it anymore? Or is this going to the departments because of the union negotiations and they are expected to need more funding?
Director Dickinson.
Yes, the amounts that were budgeted for the union negotiation results were estimated to be about $5.1 million on the budget. And this transfer will move that from the account that we budgeted that in to the respective departments.
How did police have a $2.6 million increase, but fire only had, if I'm reading this tonight, 19,000?
If you recall, the police pay scale was substantially adjusted to correspond to the current competitive job environment to attract police officers.
And do you anticipate that there further increases in a budget upcoming?
Yes, as agreed to in the union negotiations, but that increase was more of the typical increase that we have. The large budget adjustment took place in FY '23.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Thank you. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
The next item on the agenda is a continued public hearing beginning with ordinance O-40-22, workforce housing.
Now, please come forward. Now, remember, if you've spoken on workforce housing before, you are not eligible to speak again at the last hearing. So it needs to be new participants. First person signed up to speak is Patrick Sheridan. Please come forward and state your full name and address, Patrick.
Hello, I'm Patrick Sheridan. I live at 15 Peacock Lane in Ward 5. I am a member of the Affordable Housing Community Equitable Development Commission. My additional Annapolis housing roles are as a board member of Homes for America and a commissioner for the Housing Authority of the City of Annapolis. I've been involved in affordable housing and community development for 47 years in federal and state government, and more recently at a national faith-based nonprofit heading up their affordable housing development activities and operations. I'm speaking in favor of 0-40-22 and would like to focus on three areas. The first is the perception that this is a giveaway to developers. The Commission has viewed the workforce housing legislation as not only for what people perceive as a typical multifamily housing, but also allowing existing property owners and small developers to construct or renovate properties for workforce housing. The intent is that unit density could be increased from 1 or 2 units to include additional units that could be dedicated and restricted to workforce rental or ownership. The number of parcels in Annapolis that could be used for a 20-unit or greater multifamily housing condominium or rental without tearing down a similarly sized structure are extremely limited. I see this legislation focused on both traditional affordable rental housing projects seeking to serve mixed incomes and small infill parcels for home ownership. The second point I'd like to make is that to promote community equitable development, it is necessary for the city to provide paths for lower income residents to move from subsidized rental scenarios to either unsubsidized rentals or, better yet, home ownership. The Housing Authority for years has promoted programs for its residents to improve their lives, including the Family Self-Sufficiency Program. The FSS program trains residents in life skills, including home ownership responsibilities, plus allows them to set aside a portion of their rent towards a fund to assist in paying closing costs and down payments. Programs such as this, coupled with the city's Housing Assistance Trust Fund, can provide means for low-income residents of Annapolis to be able to buy a home, given such housing is available. The legislation will assist in providing those opportunities. The last point I would like to make is that there are many excellent recommendations being raised, but legislation is typically only the framework for a program. In my experience turning federal and state laws into workable housing programs, I've learned that while legislation should completely describe what is intended, it is the regulations promulgated by professional staff, vetted by the Office of Law, and reviewed by the public, which sets forth the specifics of how a program works. For that reason, I encourage you to pass legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you.
Could we have a copy of that?
Patrick, can we get a copy of that? One of the aldermen had asked for a copy to be sent to the city so we could get your comments. Thank you. Next up, Liza Skinner. Please come forward, state your full name and address.
It's Lisa Skinner. Sorry, the spelling
Sorry,
confuses people. I live at 1581 Ritchie Lane, Annapolis, Maryland, 21401. It's actually my first opportunity to come in here and testify, and it's a personal testimony in favor of this bill because I am a citizen of Annapolis for the last 13 years. I've lived in the same neighborhood this entire time, and I've been a contributing member to this community, and I have a family here, a daughter, and I'm now a single mom, divorced, still living in the same community. But unfortunately, the high housing costs, I have now been priced out of the neighborhood I've lived the entire time I've been here in these last 13 years. And as I search, I realize options are extremely limited. And I am not alone in this. I know several other single moms in the area who we are coming up against this wall to create a stable and staying in this community that we cherish so much and that we are positively contributing to. And as a library media specialist for Anne Arundel County, the idea that I have to move out of my community to establish my own home ownership, that it would, elongate my commute and take my daughter out of the only community and home she's ever known, really concerns me. And as a single mother, all the things I have to do every day just to make sure that I meet the bills and make sure that not only my family, but my community is taken care of. And I've formed deep bonds in this community. So I'm in favor of a bill that creates housing that is affordable, just as renters, but also as home ownership, as that is extremely important to me. So thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Nancy Lipson.
If I can get started, I'm fine. Okay. Thank you for indulging me here. Okay, my name is Nancy Libson, and I live at 1392 Stone Creek Road, 21403. And I'm submitting this statement in support of Ordinance 40-22 on behalf of the Affordable Housing and Community Development Equity Commission, whose charge from the City Council is to study and advise on strategies to improve and increase housing for underserved populations. Prior to my retirement 9 years ago, I had spent more than 40 years working on affordable housing issues, including finance and development, policy, legislation, technical assistance at the federal, state, and local levels. That experience and my participation in the city's Housing Affordability Task Force and the Commission confirm the advisability of creating a workforce housing program like that proposed in Ordinance 40-22. As well, the city's proposed 5-year consolidated plan and the needs assessments included in the task force final report recommend the development of housing for the missing middle, those with incomes up to 120% of the area median income. Housing developed under this ordinance would serve those who can't be served by the existing Annapolis market: teachers, firemen, police, those with stable incomes, too high for direct assistance and subsidy, but too low for the existing stock of single-family homes and newly built condos and apartments. The housing that will be built under this ordinance will likely be small-scale, infill housing, often for home ownership, comprised of duplexes, triplexes, and quadruplexes, in addition to larger-scale rental communities. It will have to meet all the approval requirements of planning and zoning for construction, although it will be permitted in more districts within the city. The housing built under this program is intended to fit into the character of any of the neighborhoods where development occurs. As you all know, legislation as proposed is usually not the same legislation that is enacted. This proposed ordinance is no exception. We know that there are a number of amendments that will clarify the intent, establish safeguards to protect the character of the neighborhoods, and to provide guidance for implementing regulations. My 10 years writing housing legislation while working for the Banking Committee of the U.S. House of Representatives tells me that this is the way this legislation is going to be produced. So as it should, and that's as it should be. We know there are changes that need to be made. By way of background, the Commission was tasked with considering the creation of workforce housing legislation as a result of the HACA consent decree. The decree required the city to review and consider the affordable and workforce housing legislation passed by the county. Ordinance 4022 largely mirrors the county legislation. I'm urging this city council to approve the proposed ordinance 4022 with the appropriate amendments that you'll go through. This will be a small, important step to provide critically needed workforce housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming out, Nancy. Thank you. Next up. Jamie Bridgman.
Hi, I'm Janie Bridgman. I live at 29 Wind Whisper Lane, Annapolis, Maryland, 21403. Before that, though, I have literally lived, I think, in every ward in Annapolis, over the 20-some years that I've been out of college and working. So I've rented apartments, I've rented condos. I rented until pretty much 2009 when we bought our house in Georgetown Grove. And I am speaking today, one, I think because I love the creativity of this particular ordinance, but I do have some concerns about the process. And creativity without a solid process behind it doesn't equal success. So I think a couple people have already spoken about amendments that may need to happen, and I think that's what I would like to see happen. So I'm here to speak against this particular ordinance 4022. Some of my biggest concerns are just in that process, in the implementation of it. And I think adding something to it to give some more guidelines. One, it needs to be a public-private partnership. You need to have these communities involved from the get-go. They need to be excited about it. And we don't have that yet. We have a lot of concern because we don't have all the facts maybe. Maybe there are more amendments in the process that we just need to get on paper. If we don't have that excitement or at least that positive framework going into it, it's not going to be successful. You're going to have challenges. We already have challenges in our neighborhood with, Airbnbs and out-of-town people buying up houses locally and renting them as hotels, basically, undercutting our hotels in the city so that they can turn this profit on a daily basis. And we're having a ton of parking problems because of that. We're having traffic problems because of that. We're having a lot of other issues because of that. And that's the type of thing that we want to make sure that we avoid and that we can welcome people into our neighborhood and have them be successful. I mean, especially when we're talking about home ownership. You want to have a lot of structure around these homes that are being modified and that are being built. If you don't, you're going to have shoddy workmanship and you're going to have a new homeowner who's upside down, even if it's affordable housing, because they're having to make improvements themselves, or they were put in a situation where maybe they didn't know they needed to do something. Where's the education around a first-time homeowner? And making sure that all of these things are happening as part of this amendment to make these people successful. I think affordable housing is a critical issue for Annapolis. I just think it needs to be planned out, and that needs to be communicated out so that we can generate some enthusiasm for it. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Chris Demi.
Thank you. My name's Chris Demi. I live at 108 South Cherry Grove, 21401. And like Janie, I kind of parrot many of the things she just said, but I'm going to take a little bit different tact and kind of, in my opinion, give some responsibility that I think you guys owe to the city, and also give a little bit of my story and why I think that there's some unique things in Annapolis that I would prefer didn't change. And so I'll start by saying that I think this ordinance could radically alter your responsibilities and allow speculators and developers to usurp much of our zoning process as it pertains to workforce housing. On a personal level, I'd like to say that I've lived in the city since 1991. I moved here because I loved our city as a visitor and I wanted to make it my home. Since that time, I myself have had to move 5 times, or haven't had to, but I've chosen to move 5 times, frankly because I couldn't afford to live then where I live now. And I know that's a burden for a lot of people, but sometimes that's part of our life's journey. However, each step of the way has been a pleasure on some level because our city is comprised of so many diverse neighborhoods offering a wide range of living experiences for all. And while it might not be perfect, maybe we need more, I'd kind of like to keep the integrity of some of the neighborhoods that we have here. So my journey went from apartments to Admiral Heights to Cherry Grove, but each time I strived to live in a neighborhood with wider streets, dead-end roads, and off-street parking, a neighborhood with children playing and adults walking without fear of excess traffic or unruly parking. What we might call today a low-density neighborhood with nice yards and swing sets. Unfortunately, Annapolis had all these things to offer for me. Yet we're here to consider an ordinance that could vastly change our neighborhoods with little or no input from this council. I, for one, would like to ensure that we preserve our current neighborhoods for future generations so that others may aspire to grow in the city like I did, where there are high-density opportunities with apartments and low-density homes that are leading to the waterfront. To guarantee this, we must maintain a zoning policy that provides for smart development rather than passing the keys to developers, many of whom don't live in our city and may seek to alter the character of our neighborhoods as they see fit in the interest of profits. You as a council have an obligation to keep our development plans on the rail by maintaining oversight and a set of rules that provide a roadmap for our responsible future growth and not building at will. This can't be achieved with the current 04022, and if that's made the law of the land. So for these simple reasons and many more that can't be argued in but maybe 3 minutes, I urge you to find a more responsible path and vote no on 04022. I'll just add a couple practical things that I was thinking about, and I wondered if this council or any council in the city has ever come across an ordinance that could so widely usurp the powers of the governing body. And has anybody sought a legal opinion on whether there's a precedent for that? And finally, I'll just say that have you considered that litigation might follow a lot of these projects and what cost that would have to the city? Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next up, Bill Reichard. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Bill Reichard. I live at 717 Bay Ridge Avenue in Eastport. And thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony on 04022 workforce housing. I'm the president of the Eastport Civic Association, the ECA. And this evening I'm testifying on behalf of that organization. Earlier this evening, I gave you a more detailed written testimony, which I can't cover in 3 minutes. So I'm submitting it to all of you, to Planning and Zoning, and to the Office of Law. Please make it a part of the record. The ECA supports the creation of affordable workforce housing in Annapolis by allowing zoning flexibility. Our written testimony details the structure necessary in any enabling legislation to successfully establish a robust program to achieve the goal of promoting affordable workforce housing in Annapolis. The first part of our written testimony lists the many interrelated components that we believe are necessary to achieve the goal of affordable workforce housing. For example, workforce housing should have affordable rental rates set by the city, not by developers. Workforce housing should be offered first to qualified workforce renters. For example, teachers, police officers, and firefighters, as an example, both initially and over time. And those are only 2 examples of the 15 listed necessary components that we have given you in writing to have a viable workforce housing framework in this statute, and that are not in this draft. The second part of our written testimony lists the reasons why 04022 as drafted lacks the structure needed to achieve the goal of promoting affordable workforce housing. For example, the draft ordinance does not ensure provision of affordable housing to targeted workforce groups. Also, As drafted, the development of this draft ordinance apparently does not reflect any coordination with the workforce housing efforts of Anne Arundel County or consideration of the submitted recommendations for the Forest Drive Eastport Sector Study Task Force commissioned by this city council, and you have that report. You've had it for over a year. And those are only 2 of the 16 conditions. Finally, if I may, we have provided detailed recommendations in our written testimony, and many others who have submitted written and verbal testimony recommend improvements to this ordinance. They include affordable housing advocates with extensive career experience in the successful creation of affordable housing. We have listened to them, and so should you. This ordinance can be fixed, but as drafted, it must fail. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, just a recommendation, Chapter 2164 directly addresses all income requirements and sets income provisions. I'm not able to go back and forth with you. I'm just letting you know that. Thank you.
We know that, sir. Well, I'm looking at the I'm looking at the ordinance and the linkages between this ordinance and that.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you. Next up, Charles Elder James. Oh, hey, how you doing? Good to see you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Elder Charles E. James Sr. I live at 789 Annapolis Neck Road, 21403. When I decided to come up here to testify this evening, I decided I was going to come up here with some written notes. But after coming here and listening, I decided that I was going to speak from the heart, because Annapolis City is near and dear to me. I am a native Annapolitan, born and raised here. Born 1953. 69 years I have been a native Annapolitan, and I've seen this city change. I love this city, and it's no secret. I'm here in support of O4022, and I would urge this council to think about adopting this ordinance because it is needed. And if my data is correct, there is only at this present time 90 affordable rental properties in this city. That's a travesty. If it wasn't for affordable housing when I was growing up as a child, I don't know where I would have been. Okay? I love this city. It's important that we and you as a body take care of the city that the citizens took care of for so many years. Affordable workforce housing is critical in this city. If I recall, there was a term called One Annapolis. Y'all remember that? I believe in One Annapolis, so let's make it One Annapolis. I won't labor the point, and I won't hold up your time, but consider this ordinance and consider it seriously, because there are people out here that work every single day that are struggling because they can't afford to live within this city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We love you too, Elder. Thank you. Next up is Steve Barney. Please come forward.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Thanks for having this. I don't have a lot to say. It's been well said by a lot of the...
Just a full address and name. Thank you, Steve. Thank
1115 Tyler Avenue,
Thank you.
Ward 7. I'm on that famous Tyler Avenue railroad right-of-ways that everybody's licking their chops over. My wife and I came here about 35 years ago, and we bought that little cottage on that property for $98,000. It was in pretty rough shape. The yard was completely unkempt. So we put the past many years into turning that into not just a wonderful place to raise a family, but also a wildlife sanctuary, a bird sanctuary, and a place for bees to pollinate. Really, really nice yard. Come over sometime in the afternoon. It's very pleasant. I looked down and I looked at the ordinance and I thought, you know, this is really a good thing. I used to work for CPDC back in a very past life in Southeast DC, and I saw what a successful affordable housing community can look like and what the requirements are around that and how it can be successful. We were so successful that we had Steve Jobs, we had Hillary Clinton, we had a lot of luminaries come and cut the ribbon on that community, and it's still rocking and rolling right now. The issues, I guess, the questions I have about the ordinance, when I see a map where somebody, and I work in the federal government now, so, you know, bear with me on this. When I see a broad brush go through R2 and just turn them all into R4 without, you know, any distinction between any of the wards, that kind of troubles me, because that seems kind of, and pardon me if this is mildly offensive, it seems kind of lazy. Because the purpose of districting communities is to control things like traffic, control things like population density, control things like noise, parking, all those issues. When you just broad brush the 7.2 square miles minus the exclusion zones of Annapolis as all one thing, that seems to be not well thought out. So what I would like to see is, if this, I'm not going to say I'm voting for or against this. I think the notion is very good. I think it's very sound. But I would like to see more. I think one of the speakers earlier said they'd like to see more public-private partnerships. I'd like to see representatives from the different wards have the opportunity to participate in the planning process in their ward so that I can have my voice heard about my neighborhood. I think that's reasonable. I also was kind of troubled about the definition. I think you brought up the point about it's all income-based. Well, that's fine. It's income-based, but it doesn't hit the target of the folks that we would really like to hit, which is the police and the firemen and all that. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.
And thank you, Police Department.
Thank you. Right, we've got a celebrity lineup tonight. Joanna Tobin is here, as well as Lisa Robian, but Joanna Tobin is next.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the Annapolis City Council. I'm Joanna Tobin. I live at 609 St. Mulberry Court, Annapolis, 21401. I am a member of the Board of Education of Anne Arundel County, representing Councilmanic District 6, which includes the city of Annapolis. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you and offer testimony in support of Ordinance 4022. My statements reflect my own views as an individual board member and are not those of the Board of Education. I urge your support on this ordinance on behalf of the students who live and attend school in Annapolis, as well as their teachers, administrators, and all of the AACPS staff who work at our schools in Annapolis. Students will benefit from the passage of this ordinance because it will ensure that more of our families have access to stable, affordable housing. Too many of our students are subjected to the uncertainty and trauma that accompanies unstable housing, which often undermines their success at school. Many live in homes that are occupied by two or more families in spaces designed for one family because of the high price of housing in this city. Teachers and staff will benefit from the passage of this ordinance because it will make it easier for them to live in the same community as their students. Currently, too many of our teachers and staff are priced out of the Annapolis housing market. If they are able to live here, it is often at the cost of stress and uncertainty because of the high cost of available housing. Teachers and staff often make too much to qualify for low-income housing, and often too little to buy or rent in the current market. We know from much research that teachers who live in the same community as their students have the advantage of more interactions with their students that transcend the walls of the school building, giving them the opportunity to know something of the family and community environment their students come from every day. Education, at the end of the day, is built on relationships. A teacher's ability to live in the same community as their students is a critical asset for building those relationships. Finally, I believe Ordinance 40/2022 is also an important step in building a more connected, resilient community in which citizens from all socioeconomic levels have the opportunity to live and work together and, in the process, come to know each other. That will also enable our schools to be more diverse and less economically segregated, which can only benefit our children and ultimately all of us. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Joanna. Next up is Kathy Sansone.
Good evening, if you can hear me. Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Kathy Sansone. I live at 39 Wind Whisper Lane in Georgetown Grove in Annapolis. I want to say up front that I support the overall goals of the workforce housing bill. However, I do not support the bill's passage as it is currently written. It does remove residents from the usual democratic planning process, and it seems to lack specifics regarding which areas are being targeted, what type of housing will be built there, height, et cetera. And the bill is also, as has been mentioned by others, missing traffic and parking studies, noise studies, environmental impacts. These are all critical parts of this bill and to protect the neighborhoods. So this bill comes to a mass rezoning of Annapolis. As I said, it not only eliminates public participation, but also seems to bypass the city's comprehensive plan. So for me personally, I moved to Maryland just 4 years ago, and I found Georgetown Grove, and I was so excited about it. The neighborhood is lovely, diverse, friendly. Everybody waves, whether they're driving or walking. This is very unusual. We have neighbors who are police, teachers, retirees like myself, and of course, lots of children. And I worked 42 years to be able to live here and afford this. And it's a privilege, it really is. So my recommendation and my thoughts, instead of building in neighborhoods, I urge you to look towards solutions involving rehabilitation of existing commercial and other properties, unused or underused hotels, motels, commercial buildings. There has to be existing structures that could be utilized for this purpose. And also, I have to ask the question, have you worked with adjacent counties in the suburbs? This is a 7.2 square mile city, and I'm just wondering what other surrounding suburbs are doing. Jamie mentioned we have in our community an Airbnb, and so I want to just use this as an example of how a single property can change a neighborhood and create issues. And these are pictures to show you what the parking is like. We live in a little cul-de-sac. We have one car driveways and garages. And this one home is now bringing in 5 to 7 cars. And that's a pretty big impact. It creates traffic issues. It creates safety issues. When things are slow, they drop it to $100 a night. And so we get up to 5 trucks with all of their vans, and we even get these with hot tubs and all sorts of fun things attached. So long and short, I'm asking that you consider being equitable and reasonable because existing residents do have rights. Again, I'm supportive of the bill, but I'm just asking you to tweak it and to be fair. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kathy. So we have two people signed up to speak that have already testified on this matter, so you can only testify once on the same issue. Kathy and Duncan, sorry. Donna and Duncan. Lisa Rodvian is next. Thank you, Lisa.
Good evening, Mayor Buckley and members of the City Council. Thank you so much for having this opportunity to testify on this bill. My name is Lisa Rodvian, and as you know, and many folks in the audience know, I represent District 6, which includes the City of Annapolis, and then about another 40,000 people outside of the City of Annapolis at the county level. And I came here in support of this bill, 040-22. I actually want to start my testimony tonight in Key West, Florida, because we could all use a little sunshine. But this is some headlines that I pulled up from Key West. Key West restaurant closes due to worker shortage. Key West job openings go begging. They would fill those jobs at $30 an hour. Florida Keys crisis. Help wanted, but no place to house workers. This is what we could be in for in the City of Annapolis if we don't take action on creating affordable housing. We don't get to control who comes into the city and who comes into the county. We have employers that are hiring people, and it's up to us, the leaders in the communities, to plan for the people that are coming. It's up to us to make accommodations for people that live here. We currently have 28,000 families, that was 28,000 families in Anne Arundel County waiting for various types of housing assistance. And those 28,000 families translate to 68,000 individuals. That's about 10% of the county population. And the thought of saying, oh, they can just go somewhere else, well, they work here, they live here, their families are here, their families have been here for generations in some cases. So there's actually there's a racial aspect to this. Those 68,000 individuals include children, adults, seniors, fully employed individuals, veterans, people with disabilities, and they deserve to have a place to live in our city too. I think someone mentioned the small number of rentals that are available in the affordable category already, and I looked it up, and someone found more than 9. I found 9 under $1,500 a month. And I will tell you, the starting salary for teachers in Anne Arundel County Public Schools right now with a master's is about $53,000, and your take-home pay every 2 weeks is about $1,100 a month. Tell me how someone making $1,100 a month is going to pay for an apartment at $1,500, and that's if they're lucky enough to get one of the 9 available apartments. We've got problems. This bill, I think, takes a really good step to make, to shake the problems, to shake things up. We want to stay the same, but we can't. We've got to accept the reality that's given to us. If we push people that can't afford to live here out of the city, we'll still need them. We need people to take jobs that pay only, that pay the lower incomes, that pay the lower salaries. Then what do? We end up with lots of traffic in our roads. Folks that say they want a lower environmental impact, having folks driving from all over the universe is not a positive impact on our environment. So I urge you to support this bill. On behalf of the county, I represent the same constituents that you do, and this is a crisis. If we don't do something about it now, it's going to spiral out of control. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Rodvian. Appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. Thank you. Next up, Christina Corona.
Good evening. My name is Christina Corona. I now live at 34 East 26th Street in Baltimore, though I previously lived in Annapolis for many years, first as a college student at St. John's, then during the first half of my teaching career. As a 21-year veteran teacher of ACPS, I'm here to speak in support of the intent of the Workforce Housing Bill. It's important that those who serve the children of this community have access to affordable housing. Currently, the starting salary of a new teacher is about $50,000. This bill would help those who are just beginning their careers to have access to housing close to where they work. There are many reasons that this is important. Short commutes help our environment and are important to one's quality of life. This also helps with the teacher retention crisis. Having access to affordable housing will help educators to feel that they have the financial stability that they need to remain in the field of education. Also, living in one school community helps strengthen the bonds between educators and their students. Fostering strong community bonds is another way to keep educators in our community rather than having them transfer to another district. In addition to classroom teachers, this workforce housing bill will also greatly benefit our education support professionals, or ESPs. Those, they include custodians, bus drivers, cafeteria staff, teaching assistants, and so many other critical school personnel who we struggle to retain since they also are underpaid. These folks also need access to affordable housing in order to ensure they have the financial security they need. Not being able to recruit and retain educators is creating significant stresses on those of us who work within the school system. This also impacts our students. Here in the Annapolis feeder, there are many vulnerable students who deserve to have the stability of a fully staffed school with educators who remain year after year. Having access to affordable housing will help with this goal of long-term retention. Having taught at Annapolis High for 10 years and now 10 years at Meade High, I also understand the importance of affordable housing for our students and their families as well. Students are able to thrive when they have stability at home, which is possible when families are not struggling financially. Being able to afford your rent with funds to spare goes a long way towards being financially stable. One last thing, I want to add that while the struggle for living wages for our ESPs continue, the state legislation, the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, which is now in the process of being implemented, is helping to increase teacher salaries to make them more competitive. In just a few years, the beginning teacher salary must be $60,000 by law. I hope you keep this in mind as you finalize the bill. As you consider the thresholds for income requirements for these workforce housing units, please keep in mind that even with this increase in salary, affording to live in Annapolis will still be a challenge for beginning teachers. Making sure that the workforce housing regulations allow teachers who are beginning their careers to have access to affordable housing in Annapolis should be an important consideration as you debate and finalize this bill. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Next up, David Katz.
Good evening, David Katz, 1931 Pendennis Drive, Annapolis, Maryland. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak before the board before the council this evening in support of Bill O-4022. The city code is a living, breathing document that needs to evolve with the marketplace, and long-range planning simply can't keep up. The market now is speaking very loudly that the city has become an absolute unaffordable place to live. It has become a city for wealthy elites and predominantly wealthy white elites. I think of the city as the original town center. If you look at how the county treats its new town centers, this is where it wants to focus development, it wants to allow for creative development and create multiple housing types, multiple densities, and sprinkle it amongst the entire community. And that's exactly what Bill 04022 will accomplish. The numbers don't lie. The median housing price for the city is $478,000. Median rental price is $2,250 a month for an apartment. The average median household for an African-American family is $40,000. As Councilwoman Rodbian put it, how can one afford to live? And that's why if you look at population growth and you see how the city has evolved from a population standpoint, it's nearly 30% lower when it comes to minority communities living here because they simply can't afford to live here. Typically, you see an inventory of 4 to 5 months, in a submarket for housing. The city probably doesn't have a day's worth of active inventory. So I just want to stress, what's being proposed is not open the floodgates type of scenario. This is a crack the door. I'm an attorney. I've represented a variety of different developers and owners in the city. I had the privilege of working on town courts with Alderwoman Pindell Charles, one of the last affordable housing projects to be introduced in the city. And it's a 5-year process. From land acquisition, going through the tax credit programs, the 3-year planning process within the city. This is not something that is going to open the floodgates across the board to new development. This is going to crack the door and provide the city a release valve in something it desperately, desperately needs. I'll just sort of conclude with, I think it's the council's obligation to address this issue and to address it now. Access to assets is the best way to solve, to sort of provide the American dream to our residents. It's access to equities into real estate. And that dream is dissipated. So I greatly request that you vote in favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Pindell Charles.
Thank you. Mr. Katz, I want to make sure that people have the complete story. If you recall, with town courts, we had some really quirky things that were unanticipated, and I'm not going to go into the details, which is the reason why it took so long. Am I correct or not?
Absolutely, and I want to compliment you, Alderwoman, because I think it's important to point out projects like town courts, they address infrastructure, and that was a big part of that issue, was bringing that light at Gibraltar and West Street, and that took so long.
20 years to get the light.
Exactly. So projects like affordable housing projects can solve infrastructure problems. That's what it does. It takes time, but it solves issues. It doesn't per se create them.
And it wasn't just the light, there were some other roadway issues, and gentleman brought it up today about Gibraltar, and then we had the school. So there were other things that we did not anticipate that had to be done, which took a longer period of time.
Absolutely. Can I mention one more thing? I just want to say, in hearing the public testimony this evening, to those that are not in favor, I hear a lot about this bill usurping or circumventing. That's absolutely not the case in how it's drafted. This is simply a bill that modifies bulk regulations. The city process for reviewing, approving, for testing for infrastructure, all of that remains. The obligation to go in front of Planning Commission, public's input, that all remains. Nothing changes. This simply allows for some tweak in the overall bulk regulations.
Thank you, Mr. Katz. Thank you. Okay, next up, Alicia Herrig Blaine, please come forward. Elijah, sorry, Elijah.
Thank you all very much for the opportunity to present this evening, or speak this evening. My name is Elisha Herrig Blaine. I've been a member of this community for more than 35 years. I live in Arnold right now with my family. I've worked on the issues surrounding housing affordability.
Full address, please. Full address.
773 McSherry Drive.
Thank you.
In Arnold, Maryland. I've worked on the issues surrounding housing affordability for more than 20 years at the local, state, and national levels as a government official and as part of national and community nonprofits. I really appreciate the comments that were just offered regarding this particular legislation. I want to use my time tonight to offer some insight about where this bill came from. In 2020 and 2021, this council asked the community to develop a report documenting our housing affordability needs and to make recommendations. I was honored to co-chair the Housing Affordability Task Force, and as a result of that work, today I'm a member of the Housing and Community Equity Development Commission. Both of these bodies have worked in strong partnership with the city staff, the Housing and Human Welfare Committee, members of this council, and the Planning Commission to develop this ordinance. After hearing that report and those recommendations, there was no feedback that the report was either inaccurate nor that the recommendations were out of line to meet the needs facing our community. This legislation is a direct extension of those recommendations and has been made in direct coordination with city staff and multiple other bodies established by the city to allow for community input. In fact, this is the third hearing in this room on this ordinance that I've been participated in. While it can perhaps be argued that amendments should be made, as has been offered this evening, this ordinance is a definitive step in the right direction. We have not heard any actions by those who have expressed opposition that they are willing to take now, and we cannot let the perfect be the enemy of the good. This legislation allows for the creation of housing that is affordable to households earning 100% of the area median income, or $116,100, with a proposed amendment to increase this to 120% of the area median income, or $139,320. This is directly in line with the need that we see when looking at wages. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics shows in their occupational employment and wage data that our community's annual average wage is $65,900, so $131,800 for a household of two wage earners. These data points only offer more evidence that this ordinance is directly in line with the need. We do not need a study. We do not need to wait to work as part of a comprehensive plan. We've done both of those. We do not need more conversations. We need action. And it is deeply frustrating to see the outright opposition to this ordinance rather than good faith efforts to offer amendments. For too long, we have talked about what our values are, and the time to act is now. I just would like to offer a few final remarks on this. This testimony is offered, as have the hundreds of hours of volunteer work that have happened in the last 2.5 years that are manifesting as this ordinance in the spirit of using the gifts and the privilege that I have for the betterment of the community that I call home. I also would offer that of the 10 people that work for the Department of Public Works that we honored this evening, and the 2 police officers that are here this evening, protecting and serving us, 1 are able to live in this community. And I think that shows a lot, and as a result of that, I urge each of you to support this ordinance.
Thank you. Okay, Keith, I'm sorry, you spoke before, so I'm afraid you can't come forward. Anybody else like to come forward and speak on this? Great, start to line up over there, that'd be great. Thank you for your patience. Sorry couldn't get you in earlier.
That was my mistake. I misheard.
Rhonda will tell me off later.
That's okay. Lisa Wilson, 601 Oakland Avenue, Annapolis, Maryland. I live in Ward 3, and I'm here to speak on behalf of Ward 3 and the Greater Parole Community Association. As you know, we've been around for 70 years, and this is needed in the city, like everyone else has said, but these are the things that we would like for you all to consider when it comes to Ward 3. Okay. We really need to think about the zoning when it comes to this, because as you know, Ward 3 has a lot going on in Ward 3. Take into consideration, I'm sorry, let me back up. We really would like for you all to consider the zoning when it comes to Ward 3. We want to make sure this does align with the city's comprehensive plan. When it comes to the infrastructure, please especially consider Ward 3. As you know, Ward 3 sits on the county. There's a lot going on in the county. I know the county's a different government. We can't control what the county does, but the county on our side of the city of Annapolis has a lot going on. So we do have some housing that has gone up and some that is in the pipeline that we need you all to consider, because Ward 3 on our end is becoming saturated with traffic. We already spoke about the Annapolis town courts, which the 42 townhomes. We have Neal Farms that has 48 parole places coming into pipe. Now, you know, that's going to be multi as well, residents as well as retail on the bottom level, more traffic. The Blackwell property on Aristide Allen is 665. WNAV, I know our alderwoman has been approached many times. Yes, it's in 2, but the ingress and egress is going to be part of Ward 3. We have the Maris Apartments, which is right across the county line. Also, everything that's going on in Riva Road, like I said, in the county, consider that when it comes to Ward 3 in this. And that's like 2,000 more units in Ward 3. We're not opposed to it. We just want some tweaks like everyone else, just so we can not be oversaturated in Ward 3. And that's all I'm going to say, because I agree, and we agree with everything that has been said about affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Terry Bond. I live at 306 North Linden Avenue in Annapolis, Maryland. I'm also a member of the Housing Commission. I've been a member for many years and served on with a number of the older people on this council, and I'm really excited here tonight to speak in favor of this legislation because it's so timely and so needed. I first wanted to talk about the comments that this plan, it's bad planning. Actually, this is implementation, which is the hardest part about doing a plan. Things never get implemented because it's difficult. You do a new plan, you say it again, it doesn't get implemented. I'm really proud that the city has taken on studying it and trying to do something, and I'm hoping that you'll support this legislation with amendments if you feel they're appropriate. but the timing is now because a lot of people have spoken before me and said a lot of the comments that I had, that there is a lack of housing for the middle income, and that's what's really necessary. I want to talk a little bit about the density, the fear of density in single-family neighborhoods. The legislation will not allow for 5-story apartment buildings, which is some of the comments that have been made on a single-family lot. There are fair zoning requirements, and remember, this is a residential zone. It has existing standards. We're not changing that. Must be followed by any workforce housing require a minimum lot size of 1,700 square feet, which is larger than many single-family homes in the city. So a typical 5,000 square foot residential lot could only accommodate 2 units. We're talking about mid-level density. We're not talking about high, and we're still, to many, this is low density development. It's just not single-family, which eats up the land so much and doesn't allow for more development, since 60% of the city is zoned for single-family. The R4 zone also has similar setbacks to other residential zones to maintain buffers from adjacent properties, which would shrink the footprint of a new building down to 2,000 square feet. This means that in existing single-family neighborhoods, like Homewood, where I live, this legislation would not result in much denser development. It's anticipated that the empty lots now, there might be developers interested in that, but this is not going to be an open door for developers just to come in and redevelop. It's too costly, it doesn't make sense. It's limited, small-scale development for existing single-family neighborhoods. Statements have been made that the legislation would allow for hotels in single-family neighborhoods. This is not the case. That's a commercial use. Hotels aren't allowed in residential zones. I think people have spoken earlier and done it very eloquently about major site plan review, the involvement of the community in those meetings. And you can increase meetings if you want. That's possible. I would love to be involved in community meetings on development that might come into our neighborhood in Homewood, and I'm sure others would too. And there's certainly the possibility to set that up. Contrary to statements, and again, it's been stated, these developments need to follow city code. They're going to have adequate public facility requirements, and that again will involve another community meeting. So with that, I just want to ask for your support of this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. How you doing?
Hello, my name is Ted Shields, 728 North Riverside Drive in Crownsville. But I work as an architect in Eastport. I was born and raised in Annapolis. When it was time to buy a home with my wife.
Sorry, Ted, did you speak on this before? I'm sorry.
No, I didn't speak. I submitted testimony.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you.
We weren't able to find what we were looking for in Annapolis, and so we ended up moving to the county. But the last speaker actually had some of the same points as me. I was going to speak, since I'm an architect, I understand how this bill would be implemented through the zoning code. And she's correct. The allowable density is a fairly restrictive metric insofar as that it only allows so many units per the size of your lot. So it's your lot, you can only have so many units based on how big it is. And so that's kind of the point. You want the number of units to be proportional to the lot size. So no, you would not be allowed to build 4 to 6 units on any given lot, especially if it's a smaller lot. You could probably only support 2 units, both of which would be affordable. These setbacks are also fairly restrictive. There's, in the R4 zone, there's many footnotes. There's about 4 or 5 just about the setbacks. And so, to give you one example, side yard setback must be reduced to no less than 1/5 of the building height if the height of the building exceeds 25 feet. Then it goes on and on. So the larger you make the building, the more restricted the setbacks get. The units will also remain small. The price cap means that there is no incentive to build larger units than necessary. You can't charge extra for larger units, but they do cost more to build. So if there's a price cap, you're going to keep those units small. Expensive property makes it much less likely that this math will work of the city. All it is, the zones remain the same as they are now, but it applies the bulk standards of R4 to different zones when certain conditions are met. It also does not circumvent the public process or cut the community out of the picture. Existing methods of public participation and other checks and balances remain. None are eliminated by this bill. So we still have uses subject to standards of the underlying zone, site design review, and then the overlays like historic preservation. So in closing, this bill provides much-needed attainable housing in a manner compatible with surrounding neighborhoods in the same transparent and publicly accountable fashion as every other type of project in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Like I said, it's a celebrity night. Here we go.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. It's always a pleasure to come back, having served here for 16 years and my wife for 12. I thought I signed up. I signed a paper in the back. I thought it was for 040, but I guess we save the best for last always. The goal of affordable housing in Annapolis is certainly laudable. It's difficult task to accomplish and should not be done to the detriment of the city, which is my concern with the proposed bill, which takes a sledgehammer to drive a nail. This legislation paints with a very broad brush and is flawed with many unintended consequences. It reminds me of the recent legislation on short-term rentals, which regrettably has caused many downtown homes to be vacated and dislodging the residential community downtown. Water over the dam. Bill 40, by applying R4 density to all residential and business zones, effectively negates the protections afforded current owners of the lesser intensity zoned areas of Annapolis. In zoning parlance, that's known as a taking. And in this case, there is no compensation for that taking. As proposed, this ordinance will open the doors to speculators and developers rushing to take advantage of the threefold density increase that this bill allows. My property on Monticello Avenue in Annapolis, Murray Hill, would under this bill allow my house to be replaced with 7 townhouses that under the proposed bill require no off-street parking. I'm sure my neighbors would be thrilled of the prospect and the loss of my landscaped property. The fiscal impact of this proposal on the city's budget will be substantial, but alas, we have no fiscal note on this proposed bill. Our police department is already understaffed, significantly understaffed, and the density impact of this bill will only exacerbate this problem. How about water and sewer service? Do we have the capacity to handle this density increase? A more focused approach to affordable housing in Annapolis is called for. Please put this proposed bill to rest and turn your good intentions toward the suggestions others have made, particularly Ms. McFall, who has much experience in this area and has many creative solutions. And in conclusion, I would add, the current proposal is something worth doing, but anything worth doing is worth doing right. So please, do affordable housing right. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, John.
Members of the council.
Thank you.
Did you name and address?
Mr. Ham, name and address.
I think we got it.
He gave it already, I believe.
We got it, yeah, thank you. Hey, how you doing?
Ooh.
Another celebrity.
Not really, but thank you for the false compliment there. It's, Ben Sale, 204 South Cherry Grove Avenue, Annapolis. I don't envy any of you for having to make these decisions, and I appreciate what you do on the council. It truly is generosity of your time and effort. Thank you. 04022. You know, this legislation seems to be, for me, targeted directly towards 4 certain areas from what I see. I have a lot of experience, been on the Planning Commission, planning and zoning code, and when you really get into the meat and potatoes, which I've been able to do with this over the past couple of months, you start seeing things and you go, what is this legislation coming for? Things don't pop up like this out of the blue. And you start seeing, well, is it going to affect my neighborhood? From what I know and what I see, talk with planning and zoning department, probably not, due to cost restrictions for a developer. Where do I see this bill really taking effect? Parole, the WNAV site, 665, there's some areas out there. Really, I'd almost call it the parole bill. Now, I am from Ward 3, on the edge of Ward 3, but what I see this bill possibly doing is not really wholly what everybody really thinks it'll do and what they want it to do. It may even go so far as to strategically do what, watch an episode of PBS on the urban dilemma and redlining, strategic manufacturing of urban poverty. It's almost like this bill will just speed through some developments which will create very high density already next to areas where we have very high density and low income housing. That's not going to really disperse people amongst the city and integrate us like we all want to be one Annapolis. And that's what we want. I look at my neighborhood and I look around, I'll be honest with you, my neighborhood is really not that diverse. We've got a lot of Latinos that have moved in and many families in one house, but not a lot of black in my neighborhood, let's be honest. It's a lot of white, some Latino, but it hasn't really changed. How do we become one Annapolis? This bill will take, I strongly believe, some big properties out in Parole and the historically black middle-income neighborhoods. You take those and put them together, you could really put a big project together. A lot of large lots out there. WNAV site, 665. These things can be done quite easily when you look at this bill. The bill has some holes in it. A lot of work needs to be done with no common open space. Again, I don't want to see kids coming to a home and not having a place to play. I don't want to see people jammed in one area. When you have a lot of people jammed in one area, it just doesn't seem to work. We've seen that. 5 or fewer lots are administratively approved right on through. 3 units per acre, you can have an R1 already. With this, it's going to get a little more. Everybody who's spoken before me is largely right from their perspective. I get it. It's a tough thing. It's a tough pill we have to swallow. But we're 8 square miles, and Anne Arundel County is many. And we keep trying to do everything inside the city of Annapolis. I get doing some of this in Annapolis, yes, but on the outside of Annapolis outskirts, we need to push and get the county to work with us to make this happen out there as well. But I don't want to see the many get crammed into a little. And right now, the bill to me has too much that you can just drive a truck through it. I really am not a fan of it at the moment.
Thank you, Ben. It's just a listening session. Alderman Pindell Charles.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Say, I am so glad you brought to bear what's going on. It is, in your section of Ward 3, no, it has very little impact. Once you get out into the parole area, it's a huge impact. And we have to look at it as Greater Parole, and Ms. Randall Wilson indicated, we have Annapolis Towns at Neal Farm. We have Town Courts, Parole Place, the Blackwell property, WNAV, which is technically in Ward 2, the Maris Apartments right across the line, Riva Road, which is gonna probably increase it by about 1,000 units. So, and whatever we not sure about Annapolis Mall. And so we're talking about Ward 3 absorbing probably at least 2,000 units. We cannot divide the line exactly between the city and the county.
Alderman Pindell Charles.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sales. Anyone else like to come forward and speak? Well, we appreciate you all being here. I declare the public hearing on O40-22 closed. Thank you all. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, just for clarity, it will be at the Housing Human Welfare Committee on the 17th of this month, which is next Tuesday, and it'll be at the Rules and City Government Committee meeting and the first Friday of the month. Is that correct?
Open to the public.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure on the dates. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Mr. City Attorney.
The next item on the agenda is a public hearing for ordinance O5522, sediment control inspections, process, fees, and milestone inspections.
Anybody here to speak on O55-22? Going once, going twice. I declare the public hearing on O55-22 closed. Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
The next item on the agenda is ordinance O5722, residential district code section correction.
Anybody here to speak on O57-22? Going once, going twice. We declare the public hearing on O57-22 closed. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
The next item on the agenda is legislative actions on second reader, beginning with Resolution R6122, Annual Meeting and Tourism Industry Reception.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt R-61-22?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley.
Aye.
Alderman Arnett.
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney. Alderwoman O'Neill. Aye. Alderwoman Pendle Charles.
Aye.
Alderwoman Finlayson.
Aye.
Alderman Chandler Meyer.
Aye.
Alderman Gay. Alderman Savage.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you for visiting, Ms. Peronis, and thank you to the team back there. We appreciate you guys being here. Thank you. Looking forward to the event. Sure these guys have been getting their black ties and their best outfits out. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
The agenda is completed.
Okay, do we have anything else for good order?
Could I, oh, he left. I thought there was going to be a joint meeting with Housing and Rules for the 040-23 too.
I was also under that impression, but
Let's check that, Regina, or is it separate still? It still is separate to this moment, everybody?
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. Alderman Pendle Charles, did you want to say something? No.
Oh, no.
No? Alderman O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had the opportunity this morning to attend the legislative breakfast for the Anne Arundel County Public School System, in which they did outline several initiatives that they're looking for this year. And I was excited to hear that one of the things that they are going to look and be going after is a change in the current state code of 180 days and a minimum number of hours in seats. And the Board of Ed is looking to make that either 180 days or minimum number of hours, which is significant, especially if you have children in school and young children in school where we have several early dismissal days, which make it really hard for working parents. So I urge anybody that has children or has an interest in the education to really take a look at that and follow that course of action, and hopefully they will get it passed. Probably not to benefit our children, Mayor Buckley, but those that come after us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Alderman Chandler.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. Today we had the launch of a youth boxing program at Ward 5's Pitt Moyer Rec Center. It was a great launch. I know some of my colleagues were able to make it. I was not, due to having to be stuck on a bus coming back from DC at the time, but thank you guys for being there who were able to make it, and I'm really excited about the program.
Excellent. Who will you be getting in the ring with?
I think Ellie wants round one against me, and I think the betting odds are in her favor.
Okay, thank you. So anything else for good order? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.